In this video, we will learn how to write the equation of a line when we are given the slope in a point. Now, example 4 is asking us to write the equation of the line, but now we are given the slope in a point. Then the formula we're going to use is the one named point slope, because we're given a point and a slope. So let's write it down then. The formula reads y minus y1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x1. Okay, very carefully, we are given the slope right here, and we are given a point. Remember, the point is going to be labeled x1, y1. So that we're ready to substitute these values into the formula. So let's begin. The y will remain the same, bring down the minus, and then the y1 is going to be replaced with that 5. And then we write the equals. We have the slope is 4, open parentheses, we bring the x and the minus from the formula, and then we replace that x1 with the 2. Okay, now you might be asking, why are you putting extra parentheses? The reason I put parentheses on these two, the x1 and the y1, is because the formula has some minuses, and I want to make sure that there's no minus negative situation. Since I don't have a minus negative situation, I'm going to drop the parentheses. So this becomes y minus 5 equals, bring down the 4, the x. Again, there is no minus negative situation, so I bring down the 2, and I am complete. This is the equation of a line, but this time is in point slope form. But what if they don't ask you to write it in point slope form? They want it in slope intercept form, like the previous one. Well, what you do is you bring the equation, and the slope intercept form looks like y equals mx plus b. You notice how it doesn't have any parentheses? So then the very first thing I'm going to do is to try to eliminate parentheses by multiplying by that value that is outside the parentheses. So then I multiply the 4 times x and the 4 times 2. So I'm left with y minus 5 is equal to, well, 4 times x is 4x. You put the number and the letters together. And then 4 times 2 will be 8. But because 4 is positive and that 2 has a minus, the different signs will make that 8 a minus 8. Now we're almost there. So I need to eliminate this subtraction of 5. So the opposite of subtraction will be addition. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. From left to right, this is y. And then minus 5 plus 5, different signs, we subtract them. So 5 minus 5 will go to 0. On the right side, we'll lose the equal sign. On the right side, I have 4x. And then you notice how I put this 5 below the 8 instead of below the 4? The reason I did that is because this 5 doesn't have an x and this 4 does. And this 8 doesn't. That means that the ones that are like terms are this minus 8 and a positive 5. Since they have different signs, I'm going to have to subtract and keep the sign of the largest. So then that will give me minus 3. And we found the equation of that same line, but now is in slope intercept form. But wait, there's more. What if they ask you to write this equation in standard form? That means that we're going to take the equation y equals to 4x minus 3, the one that is in slope-intercept form, and we're going to move it around so that we get it in standard form. Remember, first, they have to be whole numbers, and they are. There's no fractions for me to eliminate. Second, I need to have the x's and the y's on the left side. So I'm going to have to move this 4x. Since it's a positive 4x, we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. From left to right, remember, we cannot combine these two. So I have minus 4x, the positive y, the equal sign, and 4 minus 4 will go to 0, leaving me only with a minus 3. However, you see that? This is a negative 4x and a is supposed to be positive. Not to worry. Remember, all we have to do is multiply every single one of these terms by negative 1. And if you notice, all that negative 1 did was change the sign. So the negative 4x becomes positive 4x, and the positive y becomes minus y. And on the right side, the negative 3 will become positive 3. And we are complete. The x's and the y's are on the left side. All the numbers are whole numbers, and this a is a positive. So you found the equation of the same line that we started with, but now it's in standard form. So all three equations are the equations of the exact same line, but written in different formats. This is in point-slope form, this is in slope-intercept form, and then this is in standard form. Where you stop depends on what they're asking you. If they don't specify, you can stop here. If they want the slope-intercept form, you will have to move to the next. And if you're being asked for the standard form, then you move to the next one. Let's try another example here. In this example 5, we are still being given the slope and a point, so we will use the point slope form. So this is y minus y1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x1. Remember, the slope is represented by the letter m, so in this case it's negative 2/3, and the point is represented as x1 y1. Okay, so let's plug it in. So we have y minus, and then I'm going to enter y1. So y1 in this case is negative 4 equals, we replace m with the slope, that is minus 2/3. We open the parentheses. We have the x from the formula and the minus, and then we replace x1 with negative 1. And then I close the parentheses from the formula. Now you're going to see the reason why I place parentheses. Now we have a minus negative situation here. You see that right there? There's a minus from the formula, and then there is a negative from the number. So this is why I always place parentheses when I replace x1, y1, so that I can see that these are two different things. This is a minus from the formula again, and this is a negative from the number. This minus negative turns into a positive, so this is y plus 4 equals, bring down the slope, bring the x, and we have it again here. We have a minus negative. So a minus negative turns into a positive, and we are complete. This will be your answer if they don't specify what equation format they want. This is the point slope form. Now we're going to continue. Remember, we're going to move on now to what happens if they ask you for y equals mx plus b. Well, we bring the equation that we just found, y plus 4 is equal to minus 2/3 x plus 1, and we're going to distribute that number outside the parentheses so that we can eliminate parentheses. That's the very first step. So this becomes y plus 4 equals, well, negative 2/3 times x. We just put them together. You put the negative 2/3 and the x. And then when we multiply negative 2/3 times 1, so let's do this on the side. 2/3 times 1. Well, anytime you multiply a number times 1, you get back that number that you multiplied. So then I'm going to keep this as minus 2/3. All right, we're not done. Remember, we still have to leave the y by itself. So I'm going to have to move this 4 to the other side. So I'm going to do minus 4, minus 4. Okay, so from left to right, I have y. 4 minus 4, that goes to 0. The minus 2/3 of x. And now this is going to be a tricky one. To begin with, I know that they have the same sign. If numbers have the same sign, I'm supposed to add them. So let's do this on the side. I'm supposed to add 2/3 plus that 4. Now, I'm going to show you a shortcut on how to add a fraction with a whole number. Very carefully here, we're going to multiply the denominator and then add the numerator. So this is going to be 4 times 3, that's going to be 12, plus the 2 at the top, that's going to be 14. So then this is going to be 14 over 3. We keep the denominator. Now, remember, same sign, we add and keep the sign, and when we add it, we get 14 over 3. Then our result right here is going to be the equation of that same line, but this time is in slope-intercept form. And you might be asking, are we done? If your question asks you to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form, then yes, you are done. However, if they ask you to write it in standard form, then there are a few more steps that we have to complete. So we bring the slope-intercept form, and we see that we have fractions. Remember, the very first requirement for this to be in standard form is that a, b, and c have to be whole numbers. So since we have fractions, we're going to have to multiply every single term by the denominator. In this case, the denominator is 3. So I'm going to multiply this one by 3, and this one by 3, and this one by 3. So let's do this from left to right. 3 times y will be 3y. Don't lose the equal sign. And if you remember from example 2, these 3's are going to eliminate each other, leaving you only with that minus 2x minus 14. We're almost done. We need to have the x's and the y's on the left side. So I'm going to have to move this minus 2x by adding 2x. We always do the opposite here. From left to right, don't forget, you cannot combine these two because they're not like terms. One is an x and the other one is a y, but the form wants it x's first and then y's. So we write 2x, bring down that positive 3y we have there. Don't forget the equal sign. And on the right side, negative 2 plus 2, different signs we subtract, so that goes to 0. And then we bring down the minus 14. Now we're not done. You remember, you always have to come and check and make sure that a is positive, and it is. So then we are complete. This is the same equation of the line, but this one is in standard form. Let's try another example then. In the last example for this section, they're asking us to, again, write the equation of the line, and that they're giving us the slope and they're giving us a point. Notice how they don't say that they gave us the y-intercept. And the reason they're saying that is because you see how this one is passing through these two lines, the lines from the 0 and the line for the 1. So this is probably a decimal. I wouldn't want to approximate how much that is. It could be 0.5, it could be 0.4, maybe a 0.3. We don't know. So since it's not passing right at the corner of a value, we're not going to be able to use that. I'm going to have to use two different points. I'm going to have to use this point right here that it is passing at the corner. This is -1, -1. And then I'm going to use this point right there at the corner. And this one is 2, 1. So then how do we find the slope? They're telling us they're giving us the slope. So remember for that, for the slope, we use rise over run, and the rise in this case is going to be 1 and 2, positive 2 because I went up, and then 1 and 2 and 3 to the right, so that's also positive 3. So they're giving me a slope. Now the points, we have two of them. I have 2, 1, and then I have the -1, -1. Because I don't want to be dealing with negatives, I'm going to use the point 2, 1, and this will be my x1, y1. So then I'm going to use the point slope form, and that is y minus y1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x1. Bring down the y value, y minus, and y1 is going to be a 1. Don't lose the equal sign. Bring down the slope that we found. That was 2 over 3. Open parentheses. Bring the x and the minus from the formula. And then x1 gets replaced with 2. And then don't forget to close the parentheses from the formula. And I check, is there a minus negative situation on either of these? And there isn't. Remember, if there was a minus from the formula and a negative from the number, then they would have turned into positives. Since in this case there isn't, all I have to do is drop the parentheses. And this is 2 over 3, x minus 2. And this is the equation for this line and point slope form. Again, if you want to change it into slope-intercept or standard form, then go back to examples 4 and 5. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.